What's going on, everybody?
Okay.
Hey, we are here to chill with two amazing Connecticut songwriters. And yeah, we have Joe Linhart. What's going on, Joe? And then we have Austin Tewkksbury here with us. Are you guys both originally from Connecticut?
No.
Where are you from, Joe?
I make a point to say that because my wife is literally she grew up a block from where we live, so she is a definite Hartfordian, Hartfordite. What is the term? I don't know. I was born in Jersey. Um, Grew up Hudson Valley, and before here we were living. I was living in Brooklyn for the last 12 years. So I very much consider myself New York, New Jersey, and I dare not say I am a New Englander as a whole.
Yeah, interesting. Cool. Oh, we'll definitely get into like I'm curious about the scene change for you. But how about Austin? Where are you from originally? Or from
Yeah,
Connecticut?
so I'm from Burlington, Connecticut, which
Nice.
is so like the woods, like over near Hartford. Because I live down the street ish from Joe. Before I literally lived down the street from Joe. Now I live like across, or I don't know, 3/4 of a mile away.
Okay, I live in
So,
Simsbury, so I'm
It's
very familiar with
it's
Burlington.
always awkward waking up
okay.
and Austin's wearing my robe. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you
What
doing?
is okay?
What are you
Yeah,
doing in my house?
I don't know. I have found myself in there a few times. Um,
That's awesome. How now? So you guys know each other. How did you guys meet?
so we met, I think mostly through Porch Fest. We actually like
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
speak through um, helping to organize a thing called West End Porch Fest in Hartford, which is like volunteers play music and volunteers offer their porch, and then people get signed up in places, and it's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, September 10th this year.
Nice. Over
So
time.
that's quick shout
Yes.
out. But we met through that, and then kind of running into each other and doing various other things.
Awesome. That's so awesome. Excellent. 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 And before we kind of go any further, welcome everybody who's like chilling. Thank you for coming to hang out with us. Tomorrow we're all going to be hanging out live in real life person. Is that a thing? In real life person. We're going to be hanging out together. So actually, so Joe has been putting on this event. Do you want to tell us like what tomorrow is all about?
Yeah. So, I not a new concept, but certainly will be new for the venue. So tomorrow we're going to be doing in the round, which is sort of like I guess a sort of like a Nashville type tradition, where you just have, the classic is the Bluebird Cafe, and you have literally all the songwriters literally will sit in a circle, and everyone sits around them, and they just take turns. They just each keep playing a song, and part of the fun and the energy is not just from hearing all these different people back to back to back, but the conversations and the crosstalk that happens. That if we try to do um, 4 half-hour sets, I don't think you would quite have the same sense of movement as alternating songs creates. So I think it's should be a fun, exciting night. 6:30 to 8:30 at West Side Square. Ah, thank you. Put it up there.
Gotcha.
Great try on. And hopefully the weather cooperates for us. I'm really holding out hope, but I'm hoping that people will feel inclined not simply to just grab their food and hear the music in the background, but are willing to sit up near the front and try to be part of this dialogue, between songwriters, and really kind of have get a sort of a window into the excitement that is writing a song.
Yeah.
And I think that's
so
really
like the audience is going to, in a way, get to be a part of this experience also.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that's gonna work?
Right. So how you do it in the round could, of course, you can do however you can do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, or how
Uh,
tomorrow may work.
yeah, but for tomorrow, what how the how we'll go is, so we'll probably do maybe 5-6 passes depending on how time's working. But the first round through, everyone just will play whatever song that they really feel like. Let me just play my best song, my favorite song. But then after that, we have 7 other categories, and so I think instead of us deciding what those categories are, we'll let the audience decide what they want to hear. It could so it could be one round could be your a good silly song, or your best love song, or your not so in love song. Um, one round could be one of your newest songs, which is always exciting to hear what people are working on at the moment. So I think it'll be very exciting. I'm, if nothing else, I've found anytime you get musicians together, it creates a certain um, again energy that is it doesn't quite happen when you're just by yourself on stage. Music is meant to be social and interactive, and just talking with other songwriters always makes me excited to hear the craft and then see
Totally.
it actually play out. Like, all right, you're going to show us your song. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, and we should say Lee Totten is also joining us tomorrow. He has a gig today, so he couldn't be hanging out with us today, but another great Connecticut songwriter. And have you guys all played with Lee or know Lee already, or is that a new connection for you guys?
That's new for me. I all I know so far is I think Joe mentioned love songs or not so love songs, and yeah, that was a slight conversation the four of us
Right.
had, where Lee mentioned like I don't have a
Well, I
love
got to
song.
know Lee a little bit this summer. So I was connected to him through Earl from Possum.
Which is
Uh,
how I connected to you, actually.
yes, Earl is a I feel like he's becoming a local institution, a real treasure. Actually, the day before Porch Fest is going to be the Heartbeat Festival down at the riverfront, and that was a brainchild of Earl's as well, and he's been really good at helping foster musical community, which I think is something that we all have a commitment to. And so he connected me with Lee, and Lee has been, I guess, in the business, as it were, for a very long time. I opened for one of his shows, and it was interesting hearing some of his stories. Back in his day, he's played in front of, I think one time he opened up for Bare Naked Ladies,
Nice.
20,000 people. And then the
Nice.
next day he was in Northampton, and he was begging a guy to try to play a gig there. And the guy was like, well, maybe if you started an open mic night, maybe we could book you. I mean, so, he's seen the ups and he's seen the downs of music. And
That
so
story right there just like really is like the truth of being, a songwriter and original.
right. You have your great days and your not so big days. But yeah, I think he everybody's got to, I sort of play more of like a bluesy style. Yours is I think a little more reggae. Austin, yours is sort of like a little jazzy R&B soul, and Lee is like pop alternative, and I think it's a great mix, of all different. Everybody has a sort of different genre, and I think that's exciting that we get to hear, you know, different styles of music being represented tomorrow.
Totally. So let's get into like some good songwriting talks. I know a couple people are tuning in who are like, let's talk about the creative, juicy stuff. So I think I'll start with you, Austin. Do you have a place or an environment or a state, not meaning like Oregon or New York, but a state that you that you write the best in, or that where you get like very inspired? Is that?
So a few things. Generally, my history of songwriting is moments where I just recognize, like, oh God, like this is speaking to me. It's almost always a melody, and I like vocal melody, guitar, chords, that sort of, in a moment, I'll just like recognize, like, okay, I can write a song right now. And time permitting, I will, and then like get a voice memo of it and like never forget. Write down the words. So it's a bit, it's a shade random, but things that I'm learning a little more about are it almost invariably. So for this exact purpose, I just took like a little spin through latest songs. Like everything's a love song. So a lot of the time it'll be like associated with like relationships, and like usually change in relationships or in my life will precipitate like, okay, I've had life experience, now I'm inspired, I think is like the long and short of it.
Yeah.
I do have a bit of a, I know different people do things differently, and I think for some people, and I'm attracted to this, the idea that you sit down each day and like, okay, let me just write a verse, let me just do something, even if it's uninspired. It's like great practice, and I think you can find inspiration in new ways. So I hope to tinker with that sort of thing, but there's a lot to think about too, just in life. So so really a lot of it is like things will happen as I live, and then I find myself in just a moment of let's get it down.
Cool. So it's more change and that kind of thing that inspires a lot of times. I will say, when I am by the ocean, I cannot stop writing. Like it just, I say she like gives me songs. So it's whenever I'm by the ocean like that. It's not the only place that I write, but it's definitely the place that I write the most, and I'm always inspired when I go there. What about you, Joe?
Well, you mentioned the ocean, but what is your practice then?
My practice of writing, usually lyrics come first for me. Definitely a lyricist, and a lot of times if I'm by the ocean or like driving, I think because it's such like a meditative state, or just like if there's not music playing. We've been on the road before. I've been like literally like driving our 14 passenger bus, which sounds really dangerous, and I've like had my phone and voice memo. They just like songs come a lot when I'm on the road, at the ocean, sometimes at concerts. Like I'll be hearing a band, and then I'll be like, no, and then I'll like have to run out to the car and just like jot something down, like a line or something. And then from there, I usually put words to it, and then I try to make the melody more interesting, because a lot of times it's pretty simple to start. But I love, I love, Austin, that you're like a melody guy, because like I love melodies, and sometimes like I wish I could go the other way,
Same. Same. I really can struggle. Like, I do have some sets of lyrics, and sometimes for certain things, it'll be so old I just don't remember how it goes, and I'm like, these are cool.
What's the song that goes with these set of words there, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, it's funny because I feel like I'm the exact opposite of you guys. I'll just be like I don't especially with now with kids. There's no like the idea of like, oh, I have a set time it sounds very fanciful. No, just I feel bad. My wife feels I'm a terrible reader, and I kind of am at this point because while she's reading, I'm like, well, if I have a free moment, I want to play guitar, and so um, there's really no like rhyme or reason. I just if I have an opportunity, I'm just tinkering, and you never know. Just like all of a sudden, like something like some little musical ideas, like oh, this could be something, and then maybe I start to figure out how to hum something to it, and then the last thing that comes in then is the words. And for the longest time, I struggled very much with words. It was actually interesting. When we were leaving New York, I decided to like do certain things before we left the city, and so one of them was I took a songwriting class, and it was mostly just like focusing on melody, and like storycraft. And I don't. The advice was very ultimately is rounded to is your lyrics should tell a story. That was essentially the 3-day workshop. And I know that's so obvious, but for some reason that just it clicked something. So writing lyrics have been easier, and it's still the last thing that I come in. Like I don't start with words and then work the other way. It's always I work with the music, and then I lyrics are the last thing to come in, and I'm always like, oh well, what story do these am I trying to tell? So one of the categories for tomorrow is surprising, and kind of what I meant by that is like, especially since lyrics are always the last for me, I'm always like, sometimes on the back I'm like, oh, is that what I wanted to write? I'm so just as surprised as you are. But yeah, it's always, and sometimes like I'll be sitting with some music for a real long time, and then all of a sudden get a burst of words. Sometimes, like weird, like I'll be walking, and I remember one time I saw somebody wearing a shirt that's and I thought it said "Shine a Light," and then that night the song just came out essentially overnight. So there's no rhyme or reason, and I think kind of Hannah, you're saying like the ocean gives you songs. On some level, you feel like especially when the songs come out that easily, it's almost like the song was just somewhere out there. I was just waiting for you to pluck it down, and it's like it's not your song; it's just a song, and you just happen to be the one that gets to. It's like a stork, drop the song up, for you, and it's like you get to be the parent of the song.
Yeah.
Um,
I for sure believe that a lot. And it's funny how like I feel like for me, certain songs are very much like that. And certain ones I have to work for, but certain ones I feel like are just like downloads and just like, okay, I'm just the scribe, right? It's the stork. And awesome. I like the way you put that. It's beautiful. And then do you guys tend to, Joe, you touched on this a little bit, but do you guys tend to, if you have a really good idea and you're like into it, finish it right there on the spot? Or do you guys sometimes put it down and walk away, or do you feel like, and I'm sure with kids this makes things a little bit more challenging, but do you guys find like, no, I have to finish this at least like by the end of today or tonight or within the next couple of days? What do you think, Austin? How do you?
So for me, priority is always like, let's do the whole thing or as much as I can until I'm just like kind of blocked with it. So most songs that I've written have been like, boom, like 2-3 hours, and it's as finished as probably ever will be, aside from like itty bitty changes. That's changed a little. So that's changed a bit in recent years, where there have been ones that like I've come back to and been like, kind of right back there in like a bit of a flow, productive state, and like inspired, and like, okay, all these words feel good, and now it's done. Yeah, almost always just like do the whole thing and it's done, and I'll practice it a little bit or whatever. I think it is taking a little bit of a slight new can of worms, but songs kind of take different forms. They do take a form where it's like I'm just singing it and playing guitar and that's the song, but most of the music I listen to is not that. Most of it is like there's a whole band. So part of what is becoming more my journey is like taking stuff that I have and looking to take it to a more like, not just like singer-songwriter bit, but like, it's got the whole bells and whistles part of it. And that piece of inspiration, I think, is going to be a little more like chipping away, adding bits.
And is that, are you saying like during the recording process or actually during the writing process? And do you play primarily solo? Do you play with a band ever? Or
so I play primarily solo, and I would love. I'm like, so I play a few different instruments. So the dream process for me now is like get into the studio, add drums, bass, maybe piano and like backing vocals, and then like look at that and say like, oh, like here's a bass player and a drummer and a keyboard player, and now we can like, do they do all the things that it sounds like on the record, and then let that become a band. So that's part of the goal. Yeah, I know that's like taking another step away from just songwriting, but like that's like top of mind for me a little bit. Yeah, but the writing the song itself, I think I'm maybe a bit strange, and like I'm very much like, let me just do the whole song.
Yeah, no, that's not. And I noticed I was listening a little bit to the song Dream Song that you had, and I was like really digging the like in between. I don't even know, like almost felt like classical cool riffage that you had in between, and it was so interesting to me. Are you like classically trained, or like what's your guitar background?
So self-taught, with like a classical, like I have like a bachelor's in art, in music. So I got to know theory a bit that way, and like my experience is a bit like garage bands in high school to start, into like jazz band and like what's that all about, into like college where getting different flavors of different kinds of ensembles. I studied abroad in Trinidad and Tobago, and so I didn't super get my hands on like steel drums a whole lot, unfortunately, but I did do a very interesting thing. Leading up to Christmas season, they have this incredible music called parang music, which is like sung in Spanish, which is not the language that people generally speak in Trinidad. But kind of over time, like lots of different flavors of music that I just paid attention to. I think at heart, I play like rock kind of guitar. But that's a neat example because, yeah, it was totally random. That song, my lowest string is tuned, like my E strings are tuned to E flat, and it just kind of worked out in a really happy, accidental way. Yeah, but guitar and like instrumental stuff is like super my focus, and lyrics usually come after.
Cool.
As part of that too.
Awesome. What about you, Joe? What's your like guitar background? What came first, guitar or songwriting?
Oh, definitely guitar. Well, I guess they go hand in hand, because I'll put it, everybody in my family plays something except my mom. She just plays the radio. But my dad, I get criticized for having too many guitars.
From Woohoo.
Around 15 or so. My dad though was around close to like 90. So
What?
it's not
90
my fault.
guitars?
Oh
Not
my
my
god.
fault.
I go to his
My
house.
brother, my brother actually he took a extended leave of absence from his master's program to he tried to make it. And at the time he was in a reggae band. He had locks down to here, and he tried to go for it. My oldest sister, she has her PhD in music composition. My other sister, she did band and choir and a cappella group, and she's got her MFA in bookmaking. So she's everybody in my family is always doing something creative. So just a matter of time before in sixth grade I started playing guitar, and I just remember, really, it wasn't just like self-taught, but it was just like I moved from Jersey to Hudson Valley. I didn't know anybody. There wasn't like I didn't live in a neighborhood. It was too rural, so it wasn't like I could just walk to whatever friends. So I just sat at home. Like I remember that first summer, I just sat at home and I just played guitar all day. And I wasn't playing guitar yet. You're holding it and you're trying to figure it out, but it was just that was where it started. Just spending all day with it because I had nothing else to do, and also you're like, oh wait, that sounds like a song, and then like you figure out another song, and my dad or my brother shows me a few chords, and the next thing you're I always say what's great about a guitar is like a violin, you got to practice a long time before it sounds like sort of decent. But the
Yeah.
barrier of entry for guitar is so low. You give me an hour, and I give you three chords, and you're playing, half the songs on the radio, and you can sing to yourself, and like you could just go from there.
Well, I will just pause and say I teach guitar and singing, so it's not like that easy for
Well,
everybody.
okay, yeah, yes,
This is true.
yes.
Yeah.
Austin teaches as well. I'm sure. But in general, though,
Yeah.
the barrier of
Play
entry
violin. Yeah.
yes, is very low in terms of being able to have access to the instrument. Um, and so for me, I feel like at times I could get nerdy about the guitar, but at the same time, I feel like I hit walls because I'm not classically trained. It's funny. I played saxophone in high school. I can't remember how to read music. I just like I'm literally I look at a sheet of music. I'm like, every good boy deserves credit. I'm like literally back there. Um, but and it's interesting because when you're talking, like I wish I could play other instruments because like when I write a song and when I hear it in my head, I feel like you're standing in a room and like you're trying to describe what that room looks like to people standing outside, and they could just look in through the window. You're trying to tell them everything that you see, and yeah, so there's always that sort of gap, and and it's interesting because sometimes like you'll play a song and does it scale up? You know what I mean? When you start adding in other instruments, you're like, oh, I'm not so sure if I'm as excited about the song as I was when it's just guitar and voice, and
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
the song will just tell you like, no, this is not where you want to go, or sometimes what's always interesting is like you think you have a song and you've been playing it for a while and maybe you're kind of excited, but maybe one day you accidentally hit a wrong chord, and then you're like, oh, that's
Fine.
what was missing.
Yeah.
Now I like the song. Now I'm excited about it, and it was just because of an accident you hit a wrong chord, and now I was like, oh, it needed to be the minor. That was the trick. That was what I was missing. And so yeah, I at times I'm like I need to go to like find one of them jazz cats from Heart to like help me to my next level because I feel like you know uh the blues and the pentatonic scale gets you some distance.
Yeah.
You know, I it doesn't mean you have to play the most like Yngwie Malmsteen-esque shredding, you know, but you want to be able to understand your instrument, your tool for writing. Um,
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about guitar. Although I'm always feeling the same way. It's like I want to get to that next level of guitar, like no matter what level I get to. But I think that's one of the most beautiful things about guitar is like till our deathbed, we will always be
right.
like exploring this instrument because it's like infinity, right? It's just like so much we can do on it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like I said, the barrier of entry is really low, and you can just play chords, or you can like go there. You could really go down the rabbit hole and get really nerdy. And the
Yeah.
guitar accepts you wherever you're at. You know, it doesn't demand that you have like 5 years of classical training before you can play a song. It's just like it takes you wherever at whatever level you're at, and you can play a song. And really, that's what everybody wants to do, right? Is they don't want to do exercises. It's like, how do you learn guitar? Well, teach me a song, and
Right.
then you'll learn the guitar, right?
Yep. That's so true. That's so true. So if all are just tuning in, we are talking to Joseph Linhard and Austin Tewkksbury, and we're all going to be hanging out tomorrow at West Side Square, which is Friday. And this is the poster, 6:30. We'll be doing a singer-songwriter night in the round with also Lee Totten. And it's going to be awesome. So you should come down, be part of this super intimate night. Is this event free? And can you tell me a little bit about? I've not been to West Side Square, and I hear a rumor there's food trucks there. Is that what
Yes. So
Okay.
it absolutely is free. It is. It's. I confess, the people who own the food truck place, they are my next door neighbors.
Nice.
Hence why it's a little easier to get booking there.
Nice.
But it's wonderful. It's I as someone who loves the West End community, it's become a wonderful West End asset. It was an empty lot for years, and the neighbors came along and said, you know what, there's more to it than that, and they had a vision for a food truck park, and it's now in its second year of operation, and it's been wonderful. I mean, obviously the weather I feel like has been conspiring at times against them.
Yeah, dinner time, rain.
But you know, most nights you'll have usually three trucks. Um, this year they've added a double decker bus, which
Nice.
the bottom is a bar and the top is just a great hangout spot. There's a big pergola in the middle with a bunch of tables and chairs. There is the stage. Um, and then there's a bunch of other things for just, you know, your entertainment, especially the kids. You know, there's a pool table, there's cornhole, ping pong, a foosball table, and
In the bottom of the double decker bus, or just in the end
yeah,
of the yard?
throughout the whole.
Okay.
It's all in the double decker bus.
Wow, that's a big
You're
bus.
literally going to have 50 people sitting. It's you know, instead of tiny desks, tiny concerts. Like,
Oh,
but it's you know. So Austin has had a chance to be on the stage a bunch of times. We've
It's a
done
great place.
a few things there as well, and you know what I love is that it at its best, it really brings the community together. You know, everyone just walks down and they have a great time. Um, and you know, when the weather is, you know, the sun has kind of gone down and it's just that nice sort of evening where it's not too hot, not too cool, and then you got some music playing and everything like that, it really feels like a wonderful space. So I'm very excited that we could do something a little bit different there instead of just a straight band or um, you know, DJ music. Where I think this is a little something that there's been singer songwriter, but never like in the round. So I'm very excited to show the neighborhood what that looks like.
Yeah, I love it. I love this concept, and I love the idea of bringing songwriters together, especially in Connecticut, where it can be a little challenging to be an original musician. How have you guys found that? So when you guys play gigs, do you play a bunch of covers just like to keep people happy and to get good gigs, or are you guys like solely original? How has your experience been just being a Connecticut songwriter? The challenges, the positives. We'll start with you, Austin. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. So most music these days is like super covers. I play with a few different groups, and I it's super fun. I love my job.
Yeah.
And so I rarely play solo sets. When I do, I'll often sprinkle in a couple of originals, just that I think are like pretty crowd pleasery, like bar vibe type of thing, because that's the gig I usually get. There are a few things that I do that are a little bit more along these lines, like songwriter specific. Let's get creative and artistic and kind of recognize like that whole thing, because people love it all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think for the most part, my personal community in this state is very in love with music, and that does give me opportunities to share the stuff that I make. And yeah, as I said before, a lot of my personal process right now is like, let's get these things recorded. Let's make the original stuff that I've done much more of, what I do on the regular. So psyched to play tunes with you guys tomorrow and hear all that. But yeah, I think Connecticut, it's like not New York City, right? Like it's not Boston. It's like hilariously directly between them, and I think it does have a bit of a feeling of I don't know, like not the hotbed like creative place, but you really don't have to look long at all to find that here.
And there's so much talent. Like there's so much talent here. That's
loads. It's awesome. Yeah.
Totally. Well, so how about Joe, coming from Brooklyn? I've played in New York a bunch over the years. Very different scene. Like, how have you found that transition? Obviously, you're like in a different stage of life, having kids. So that probably changes things. But was that challenging for you to start like meeting people and getting gigs, or pretty easy?
So, I don't really know a lot about the New York scene in terms of like, was I playing out a lot? Not really. And the funny thing is, especially like for me, like it wasn't enough just to play music. Like I like playing in a band. You know what I mean? When I write songs, I hear it as a band thing. I enjoy, like, especially when everybody is like locked in and you just hit a note and it just like that floor gets set and you're just like, you're locked in. Like that, I like playing in a band, and so trying to like put together a band in New York just seemed like so big and so daunting. It's like, it's all things to everybody, so it's nothing to nobody, right? It's like, so moving here has actually been in a weird way is like giving me this sort of new lease on life here, just because the scale of the city is so much smaller, and so it's like, where do you dip your toes? Well, I just started meeting people on Facebook on West End Living. I was like, hey, is there anybody in the neighborhood that plays? And it just so happens that bass player just moved to the neighborhood recently, and he's a block away. and the guy who plays keyboard, he's a block away. He lives right next door to Rachel's parents. Um, and our normal drummer. Actually, the funny thing is, I played with him back in college. I didn't talk to him in like 20 years. Moved to the neighborhood. I'm like, hey, I remember you used to live around here. Are you local? And it's like, yeah. And so it's just like all of a sudden, very quickly, found a bunch of guys. Whereas like
Neighborhood, that's so cool. Like you guys can walk, like you guys, that's super convenient.
so living in Brooklyn, for all the time, like I tried different things to try to connect with people, and it was just always very halting. And there's just a simple matter of like also just geography. Who's got space to practice? Um, and so here we went from an apartment to a house, and like for the first time in my life since I was always the youngest sibling, and between college and everything like that, like I have my own room, I have my office, and it's the band room, and also I have all my guitars, and I have everything set up, and so also now I have space for a band, and and I can organize a show because next door the people, they actually own a place and they have a stage, and then all of a sudden everything just starts to feel easy, even though in some ways this is like the hardest time of my life. You know what I mean? Having almost 4 years old and 20 months and a dog is just like, and then it's still like a regular job. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like, at the time I'm always thinking about like, yeah, but maybe I could put together this show, or oh, I just need a verse and then I could finish this song, or like, oh, look at that, that's a good looking guitar. Oh no, I shouldn't, but that's a good looking guitar. And like all these things are going through my head at any point during the day, and so like and my goals are modest. I'm not about to quit my day job, but just to be able to play 2-3 shows a month right now just feels like kind of like I feel like I get to sort of reawaken that dormant dream, that I had as a 21 year old of playing music. I feel sort of reanimated, and and it's so, and I'm a different space in life, so 3 doors down from us is a guy, Joey Peebles, and he is the drummer for Trombone Shorty, and so he's obviously doing it, and he's got 3 kids, and it's tough because he's gone for 2 weeks at a time, a month at a time. He's going all around the world playing all these shows, and it's wonderful. But I know it's a struggle for the family, and I know he misses his kids. It's tough to be on the road even while you're doing something that you love.
Mm-hmm. Even without kids, the road's tough.
Hmm?
It's even without kids, the road's tough.
Yeah. So but where I'm at, just to be able to like, I had all these songs in my head, and just to hear them out loud and to hear other people playing those songs, even just that alone is just like feels great, and like I said, I don't know if this all would have happened if we're still in Brooklyn in an odd way. So it's like, I'm like Hendrix. I go to London to make it big in the US,
Right.
I go to Hartford to make it big in Brooklyn.
Right, exactly. That's a good way to look at it. Cool. Well, I'm gonna ask one more question, but I'll make sure I respect your time. And we're all gonna be hanging out tomorrow, but let's just announce one more time. Tomorrow night, Friday, July 28th, in the round, Songwriter Night. We have Austin, who's here with us, and Joe, who's here with us, and then Lee Totten will be joining us West Side Square. There'll be some food trucks and Farmington Avenue in Hartford. So come hang out with us. But But yeah, let's end with this question. I always love to like bring some inspiration to people. So you were talking about reawakening that dormant dream. So how about to both of you guys, for any people out there that might be singers or aspiring songwriters, either they started writing or they kind of like, I would really love to write a song, but I don't know where to start. What kind of advice would you give somebody like that?
So, yeah, I'm happy to start. I think I think this is funny. Unlike Joe, I do feel fully like New England as a like identifier for me.
Yeah. Identify the New Englander.
David Cheetah is better.
Yeah. And part of what I associate with this place is like this like heritage of like puritanical absolute nonsense. Like things are a certain way, and like there are judges of like what's right and wrong. And then and so I mentioned that because I think having judgment towards your like play and creativity and imagination like kills it. It doesn't work. So if you I would say to anyone who is sort of like wrestling with themselves about like getting creative, I do think that like if you can let go of some things and then watch yourself create something, even if as you're watching yourself making it, you like there's a part of you thinking like this is garbage, like make your garbage for a minute. Like maybe it's not actually garbage, and like you're just not in the right frame of mind to recognize like the value in it immediately. So just like pump your brakes, like get messy. Creating is everyone's unique, and how any one person is going to create is going to be totally different from another. So what is necessary is like just let it happen, let the chips fall where they will, and then you can check it out later. But you need to relax and like just get something out.
Allow it to flow.
Yeah. So that's what I would say.
I love that. Awesome.
Well, I agree that like there's times where I will vacillate. I'm like, these songs are terrible. Like, I think I wrote a really great song, and then I'm like, this is terrible. So I get that sort of riding the roller coaster.
Yeah.
And on some level, yeah, you just like sort of just override that and just like, all right, I'm just gonna hit the I believe button. You know, got it right there on my desk. You know, the funny thing, I think, yeah, people always feel like that like they're gonna be found out as like a fraud or on some level like that they'll run out of ideas or something. I don't know. And actually, in a weird way, I was like, I always at some level I was like, why is it that like sort of like that there's always that curse of like the sophomore album or whatever, and like I was like, because like at some level there's sort of this idea that like that first album you put out was like, it was actually almost like a best of album, because it's like you're taking all the songs from your entire life and you're picking the best ones for that first album, and then after that you feel like, I'm writing just to write, as opposed to like, you know what I mean, like, now I'm purposefully writing, and it's like but on some level I realized like, no, that's not necessarily true, because even if say like you initially feel like you're producing garbage or whatever, but like I feel like as I've like really dived myself back into like playing guitar and like getting excited about playing guitar and writing, like in a weird way, like more ideas start to come, not less. You don't like run out of ideas. Like all of a sudden, like new ideas start to find you in a ways that like feels unexpected and surprising. And it's like, like all of a sudden I feel like all these songs are coming out of, it's like you pulled one rabbit and all of a sudden like 5 more pop up, and so it's like, yeah, even though you feel like, I don't go down that road, it's like, actually no, if you you throw yourself into it, you'd actually you end up finding more in abundance than like the path isn't narrow. It opens up, and like there's this more music that comes to you, more ideas, more just like, oh, there's a song, there's a song, there's a song. It's kind of weird how that happens. But you just gotta start walking on that path. Otherwise you'd never get to it. And yeah, especially like I said, from not that I ever stopped playing guitar, but just like going from playing by myself in my bedroom for years to now all of a sudden having this like outlet where like, oh, we're playing shows and playing out. All of a sudden I'm like, it's almost like I wish we had more time, because like there's all these ideas I wanna try out, and I'm always like, oh, maybe we could get one more person in the room, just to, because then they could add this to the mix, and it's just like you just want to get more and more. Then you have 90 guitars,
Right, and nobody can hear your lyrics.
Right, but it's just like you throw yourself into it and you'll be surprised where it will take you.
Yeah, beautiful. That's so beautiful. That's so true. I definitely had a teacher that told me you got to write 100 bad songs in order to like get to that one good, So it's just like keep writing and don't think that first one's gonna be like the best song, right? It's like it's definitely like a process, and so just like.
And I still remember. I think the first song, I don't even remember how it fully goes, but I think the first lyric I wrote was like 16 and learning how to drive.
Nice.
Rock and roll, baby.
Real.
That's awesome.
Yeah, clearly that one's going to be on the radio.
Magic happens, like you
Right,
kind of never know.
Tomorrow I debut 16 and learning how to drive.
Awesome.
There.
I'm telling you. Well, it's been awesome hanging out with you guys, and we're gonna get to do this tomorrow. And thank you guys for making time to chill and talk about songwriting. I feel like we could have this conversation like all night, but
This is fantastic, and I feel I'm looking to hear more about also your own journey and Lee's journey as well. I feel like we only got two full stories out there, and
no, it's all good. It's all part of the journey, right? Your story's my story is your story, and it's like, yeah. Cool. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Come visit us tomorrow, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Peace.